Backstage Pass Radio is now a global podcast heard in 92 countries around the world. Our newly formed partnership with Cynad Outdoor has us seeing great traction in Texas and Louisiana. Since Cynad's beginnings in 1964, this family-owned and operated advertising company has become the largest independently held billboard company in Texas today. Cynad prides itself on unbeatable service and turnaround time. Let their experienced design team create the perfect advertisement to showcase your business. Contact Cynad today at 713-861-6013. And also make sure to visit their website at www.cynad.com and tell them Backstage Pass Radio sent ya.
From the heart of Willis, Texas, comes a voice that blends grit of honky tonk with the soul of Texas country. Hey everyone, it's Randy Halsey with Backstage Pass Radio. My guest here in the Crystal Vision studio today is an Army veteran turned rising artist, and he's carving out his own lane with songs that echo the legends while speaking to today's listeners. Today we're pulling back the curtain on his journey, his sound, and his story. So stick around and we'll talk to my man John Gentry when we return.
This is Backstage Pass Radio. Backstage Pass Radio. A podcast by an artist for the artist. Each week we take you behind the scenes of some of your favorite musicians and the music they created. From chart-topping hits to underground gems, we explore the sounds that move us and the people who make it all happen. Remember to please subscribe, rate, and leave reviews on your favorite podcast platform. So whether you're a casual listener or a die-hard music fan, tune in and discover the magic behind the melodies. Here is your host of Backstage Pass Radio, Randy Halsey.
John, welcome into the studio, bud. It's great to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here, Randy.
Yeah, it looks like that guitar you just pulled out of the case is almost brand spanking new. How old is that thing?
Oh, actually, I got that back in March.
Did you?
Yeah, it's the newest addition to my insane obsession of getting guitars. I had to lie about this one. I had to say, well, no. She's like, what is that? I said, it's a gun. She's like, no, it's not shaped like a guitar. I said, yeah, no, it's like, one of them Tommy gun cases you see in them old Al Capone movies.
Well, we talked a little bit before hitting the record button, and it's like, you could never have too many, man, and all the tone woods sound so different, not one of them sounds alike. So it doesn't hurt to have a little variety around, right?
That's true.
Well, how's life up in the big city of Willis, Texas? I'm guessing that's where you drove in from, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And the traffic was wonderful too.
Oh, absolutely wonderful.
And so is this where you were born and raised, or did you find your way to Willis sometime later on in life? Talk to the listeners a little bit about Willis and how, and has it been the whole time of your existence that you've been in Willis?
I've lived in Willis since I was about 15. Okay. My movement in my childhood has been, it's been a little wild. I mean, I've lived in Tennessee, I lived in North Carolina. I was born here in Houston, and I moved to Tennessee when I was probably 3, moved back when I was 7, and lived in New Caney, Porter area, and South Texas in the Valley, and eventually, by the time I was 15, made it back here into Willis and lived there until I went to the Army.
Well, Willis is like, I was just out there for a baby shower. I think it was out off Calgary Road, and Willis is a lot bigger these days than it was, 30 years ago. I remember having a friend that lived in Willis 30 years ago, and it was like a one-horse town back then.
I remember Blockbusters there across the street.
Right?
I remember when Cody Johnson used to stand in front of the old Kroger and play his guitar for tips.
Sure. Wow. Well, thinking back in time a little bit, was there an artist or a song that made you kind of think, man, this music thing might be for me? Can you jog your memory a little bit?
There's a few of them that I can bring to mind. Vince Gill being one of them. Colin Ray, Travis Tritt, Joe Diffie.
Yeah.
I mean, Vince Gill was probably right there in my top 2. Vince Gill and Travis Tritt probably right there, and Colin Ray's right there on the cusp with 3rd and 2nd. Vince Gill is just one of those singers. It's you hear him and it's just unmistakable.
Oh yeah.
From Pocket Full of Gold, When I Call Her Name, it's just, he rose up from bluegrass, you know, kind of like Zach Top did, you know, and I wish I had that kind of background. I mean, I'd be a much more refined player.
Yeah.
And those are the type of people that I've looked up to my entire life, my entire career as a musician, as a singer, just from sitting in the back of the car at 5, 6 years old, you know, singing anything that pops on the radio. You know, those are the type of people I grew up listening to.
Sure. Well, you know, you listen to guys like Vince Gill and say, man, what an angelic voice. I mean, that's a guy that can sing the phone book, but he's equally as great of a guitar player as he is, you know, a singer. And I think there's you know, over the years you see players, right? And I'm never talking down about, you know, the Alan Jacksons and the George Straits, because they're wonderful in what they do. But the guitar was kind of a second thing to them. It was almost like this pacifier, if you will. They played it, but they didn't play it. They played it, then they sang. But, you know, you get top shelf guitar players that are country singers, Keith Urban, Brad Paisley, Jerry Reed, like some of these people that are on another planet from a playing ability, right? And Vince Gill is one of those guys.
Well, man, it takes it from, you know, from an incredible singer. Like, you can't take that away from any of them guys. They're just outstanding singers and musicians in their own right. But you take a guy that's an incredible singer and then put a guitar in his hand, and that guy can make magic with it.
Yeah.
It takes it from a great show to something that you're going to remember for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. And that's why those guys are at the level that they're at, because they're really, really good at that. Walk me through the songwriting process for you. Are you a music or lyrics first kind of songwriter? Talk to the listeners a little bit about your process, or if you even have one, because let's just face it. I mean, a lot of songwriters don't have a process. They just, when it hits them, right?
That's kind of the way I lean. I have the weirdest process. Everything that I write personally, that I've ever came out with on my own, has been entirely emotionally charged. It'll spontaneously come to me at one point in time, or, you know, if I've had a certain kind of day going on and I hear a song, I'll hear just this rhythm or this sound in my head, and all of a sudden it'll start flowing, and that's just kind of the way my process is. I'm not one of those guys that can just lock the door, sit down, turn the lights down low, and sit at a table and pump out 5 or 6 songs.
Yeah.
It's impossible for me. My mind, I can't even sleep half the time. My mind just wanders.
Yeah. Well, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, because I've had many songwriters that are very structured and methodical about their writing. At 10 o'clock every day, they sit down and they write, right? And then there's others kind of like yourself. When it hits you, and it's more organic, right? It's not forced. It's just whenever you feel something, right? You write the thought down and then you come back to it, or whatever the case may be.
Well, I have a great example for that. For one of my second song that I ever wrote was called Hope. And it used to be on all the platforms. The only way you can find it right now is on Apple currently, because I was with a previous production company and decided to take all of them down. But the way the front part of the song goes, I see you in the morning when the starlight meets the sun, and I know by the grace of God that my day has just begun. He brought me you on angel's wings, but the truth is, with you, I don't need a thing. And if that doesn't speak somebody's in love, and that's I don't know what does. And that's the way I wrote that song, and I envisioned it was really a daydream. Vision, you know, seeing your woman you love standing at the bed, you know, white dress on, and, you know, it sounds like a music video coming to mind right now.
Of course, right.
But that's what I mean when emotionally charged.
Yeah.
It's, you know, that's country music.
Sure,
heartbreak and love songs,
of course,
and drinking.
3 chords in the truth.
That's
right?
Oh my God, that's true.
Well, how do you know? So you write a song, you pour a lot of labor, you pour a lot of love into it. You come back, you change some words, you change some music, then you think it's done. For John Gentry, When do you know a song is done for the final time?
Oh my goodness. I will probably pick and pull out a song until the minute we're cutting it. I'm my own biggest critic. Just like most singers and songwriters, we're so hard on ourselves, and it's an unforgiving truth, an unmistakable truth, that we will be harder on ourselves than the listeners who are perceiving the song the way they feel it is coming out. It's never good enough. Never good enough because, when you cut it, and it could be out for months. You're like, oh man, I should have done this.
Hindsight's always 20/20, right?
I've done that so many times. I'm like, man, this would have been so cool if we put it there. What if a fiddle had been playing here?
Yeah.
And
but do you think you could? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but can you overwork a song?
Yes.
Yeah. To the point where, wait, it was great the first time, and now I've mucked with it so much that now it was never like it as good as it was originally. Do you think there's some truth to that?
100%. I've started writing a song and I'm probably a month into it, and I have force fed this song so much that by the time I'm at that point, I'm just like, I stopped messing with it. And I eventually came to it, a year later, I had to rerun it because it just I got to where I hated it. And if you get to a point where you're hating something you're writing, you put the pen down.
Sure. Well, you're a young man, and there's an old 4-letter acronym, and I'm sure you've heard it. It's called KISS, K-I-S-S, and the acronym is Keep It Simple, Stupid.
Oh, God.
Right? Have you ever heard that in your life? Right? So I think my point there is, I think we try to add this and add that and tug on this and tug, and it's like, just keep it simple, right? And sometimes the simple is the best format, I think, right? So I think that goes back to, you can overwork a song ad nauseum to where it's like, it was great the first time. Like now I've just done so much to it that it doesn't have the same feeling anymore, right? You
can work the emotion right out of the song.
Well, you talked a little bit about reworking Mr. Lonely. From a writer's standpoint, are you more of a standalone writer, or do you prefer standalone writing to co-writing, or is there one that favors the other?
I have very little experience co-writing. That Mr. Lonely song was my very first co-write, and it was a good experience, It actually didn't start off that way. It was kind of like the lyrics came to mind, and I was like, "Hey, Kenny, what do you think about this?" And I said, "This to me kind of feels like more of a '90s vibe at the back end of the song." And he's like, "You know what? I like that." And he's like, "Let's collaborate on that. Let's fix up the words a little bit, and we'll run with it." And it was. I've heard horror stories about stuff like that. People get their feelings hurt sometimes.
Sure.
When something's already written.
Yeah.
And I totally understand why. I can totally understand why, people put a lot of heart and soul into something they write, and then when it finally goes on the paper, it's and somebody goes in and tries to fiddle with it.
It could be like calling their baby ugly, right?
Oh, my goodness, yeah. It can be, absolutely.
Yeah. But, a lot of songwriters, while they may not want you to change the words of what they've written, I think that if an artist cuts their song, like they want to hear their version of it, like they want to hear how they interpreted it. I could sit here and talk to you for 4 hours straight, at least, about songs that were written. And I can think of one just popped into my head. There's an old song called Blinded by the Light, a rock and roll song that was done by Manfred Mann's Earth Band. And a lot of people have no idea, but Bruce Springsteen wrote that song. And the Manfred Mann's version was their interpretation of what Bruce had written. Mm-hmm. And it's just so much better from a production standpoint and how it's played. And that's what I'm talking about. We could go on and on and on about, I guess, portraying the song how you envisioned it without changing all the words up to it, right? So, I think there's a little of that, but I think if the original writer is certainly cool with that, then that's a cool thing, right? Because he could have easily said, "Nah, don't change the words to my song," right?
Well, and the way I went about it was the words that we came up with together. After the fact was it meant the exact same thing. It was just
in your own words.
Verbiage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
There was nothing emotionally or nothing that was being said that didn't come out as the same meaning at the end of it.
For sure.
Which I think is what helped.
Yeah, of course. Well, you released, and I'm probably off on my counting, but you correct me where I'm wrong. I think there was 4 or 5 songs that you released last year. Talk to the listeners about the songs that you currently do have out. Am I right on 4 songs, or was it 5?
4 releases last year.
Okay. Can you talk just high level about each one of them?
Okay, let's see here. We have Raining Inside was a good one that I really personally like, and to me the beginning of it came out to sounding kind of like a Shenandoah song with all the mandolin and everything. So I was like, man, this sounds so cool. I was super excited about it. And then Around Here, was another song that my buddy Kenny had come through with, and that came from a more personal level from when he was starting off in his younger artist days and kind of beating down the doors, trying to find venues and trying to, just live it up in a small town,
Sure.
nothing going on. Then you have Mr. Lonely, and then you have I Love What You're Doing to Me. Those came out at the same time, and then Raining Inside and Around Here came out at the exact same time.
Okay.
Both with probably within a couple months of each other.
Were all of those recorded at the same place, or did you go disparate places?
Every one of them the same place. Every one of them recorded in probably what feels like a hall closet. Probably about a 5x8 bedroom out in Navasota.
Really?
Jody Bartula's house, Cody Johnson's fiddle player.
Okay.
Super nice guy. Caught him when he was just off tour. And I guess Kenny and him have been playing together for 15, 20 years. Mm-hmm. So he's like, hey, they got a recording studio there. Might be able to help you out a little bit and see if we can't get some good songs out. I'm like,
sure.
It's all the fiddle and piano and everything you hear on there. That's Jody.
That's pretty cool. And I think a lot of bands do that. There's a lot of going into the studio. There's a lot of stuff done at home studios. You can get a pretty good production out of a home studio these days where you couldn't do that probably 20, 30 years ago, right?
Yeah, that's true. There's nothing wrong with going to a full-blown blanket studio, I guess what I would call it, because it's got bells and whistles for everything.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it, and if you got the money to do it, by all means, go for it.
Of course.
Because you go to Nashville right now and record a song, you're probably going to pay out the wazoo and empty your pockets to do so, but
Sure.
you're probably going to get the same or similar production from somebody who has the same knowledge doing it out of a water closet.
Yeah. I think it's all in how it's done. Well, I guess since the guitar stool and the guitar are still a little warm from the last song, you mind jumping in and maybe playing another song for the listeners of Backstage Pass Radio?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
The sun's out this morning and it's shining down on every house on this block, it seems. There's children out playing with smiles on their faces, not a cloud inside I can see. There's something going on in my home. It's raining thunder and everyone around me is dry and happy. And I sit it's raining inside. The forecast says dry, and I look down, there's water at my feet. I begged for forgiveness, prayed for peace, but only God's forgiven me. I hope there's a break soon in this storm. Am I at the tail end of it? Just when I think there's sunlight, that's when lightning strikes and it starts pouring again. She moved on, the storms blew in and took all the things this house had to give. Her memories run down these walls I can't forget. It's raining inside.
That was a song called Raining Inside. Talk to the listeners a little bit about where the idea from this song came from, John.
Raining Inside was just, came from a part in life where it's just, you feel your heart just kind of enveloped in some heartache and pain and sorrow. And then, one moment leads to the next, and it just, everything seems to be tumbling down on top of you. And it just, it's anybody who's had a broken heart, anybody who's felt that kind of pain can kind of understand what I'm saying. When things roll downhill, it goes all the way to the bottom and doesn't stop, and then eventually life gets better.
There's always light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Absolutely.
Regarding musicians and people that you play with, do you have a permanent band, or are you an artist that just picks people up along the way for shows? Can you speak to the listeners a little bit about that?
Well, originally I started off, I had a full permanent band, and it lasted about a good year, and then you get all your ducks in a row, and everything becomes down to a T, get it down to a science. And then, like most bands, it's the hardest thing to keep together, and it just falls apart for one reason or the other. This wasn't for a bad reason. My guitarist wanted to have a family, and I was not going to be the one to stop him. I said, "You go on,
sure,
great, start your life." Young man, fresh out of the Marines. And I try to, at that point in time, I tried to bring in folks that were military members, stuff like that, like myself, and camaraderie that's hard to beat. After that, I started to gain a lot of friendships with musicians along the way, stuff like that. So I pick and pull from the crowd, folks that I've met over time. Guns for hire is what we generally call them, or at least that's what I call them. And you get your good ones and you get your bad ones. The unfortunate part is, when you don't have a permanent band, sometimes you find the duds that don't do their homework.
Sure.
But that's okay. It's learning lessons, growing pains. Now I officially have a permanent band again. We're starting to book. Got a booking agent now. That's weird because I've always done it all myself. Mm-hmm. So I don't feel like I'm sitting on my hands right now.
Sure.
It's like I don't know if you've seen that Will Ferrell movie. Like, I'm not sure what to do with my hands.
Right.
Oh, but yeah, that's what it feels like. So it's everything's starting to take motion and baby steps. And got a really interesting call a couple months back. I got invited to come play out in Nashville at the beginning of February. So I'm flying out there January 29th and doing a cancer event for breast cancer awareness and stuff.
Awesome. Well, you'll have to let me know who's on that bill. I've had a lot of Nashvillians on my show, a lot of singer-songwriters out of Nashville, and it's interesting because you get out to Nashville, and I remember one guy I had on my show. He was playing Song Swap at the I think it was the Nashville Palace in Nashville, and I was in there having a hamburger, and so it was just Sam and another guy, and they were just trading songs. I'm like, man, these guys are good. Like, and I was really gravitating to the original music Sam Banks was doing. And I asked him after the show, I said, hey, man, I got this podcast back in Cypress, Texas, and I'd love to have you on the show. And when I started digging into this guy, I didn't realize at the time when I saw him sitting up there on a stool that he was the guitarist for Craig Morgan for a number of years, right? Oh, wow. And it's funny. The guy that he was song swapping with was Luke Combs' piano player. And I'm like, you never know who you're going to run into in Nashville. And I loved him for his music. And again, I wanted to plug him. Sam Banks is his name, was phenomenal singer-songwriter out of Nashville. But you never know who you're going to stumble into out there. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Where's it? I can't remember the place. I think it's called, was it Music City? It's a bar out there.
Maybe so.
Tom Buller plays out there. My cousin goes up there from time to time, and he's seen Gary Stewart walk in there, wow. Vince Gill, Mark Wills.
Sure.
People just all walks, just walk in there. Yeah. And I find that really... I like that because it lets me know that people are still people.
Yeah, for sure.
Fame doesn't necessarily get to people's heads.
No, I mean there's some it does for sure, but there's some that stay humble, and that's the best way to be. I think if I gave any life advice to anybody, regardless of whether you're a professional athlete or whether you're a musician or just good in whatever, a garbage collector, just stay humble and remember that, and I've told this story ad nauseum, but I spent 17 years in professional hockey as an official, and I can still remember so many times players would come out of the tunnel and the kids would want to fist bump the players. And there were some of those players that just didn't want to do that. And hockey players are a little weird, and with all due respect, because they're very superstitious and they don't want to break superstition. But what you have to remember, whether you're a hockey player or a guitar player, you were that little kid at one time that wanted to get the fist bump, right? Mm-hmm. So remember how it made you feel if the player didn't, or the musician didn't fist bump you. Don't be that guy, right? That's the life advice that I would give as an old guy, right?
Absolutely.
And I don't think you would disagree with that.
I live by those same goals. Always stay humble. Never forget your roots. Somebody helped you get there, whether it just be hometown fans and friends sure. and family. Somebody helped you get there along the way. And if being humble and kind and respectful and taking that moment in time just to shake somebody's hands, give somebody a hug. I mean, sure. That could make somebody's day from a really bad one where they were probably at their end of their rope into a fantastic one where it changed that way, that thought process.
That's right. And there's a lot of truth to that. You don't know what people are going through. Everybody has a story at the end of the day, right?
Absolutely.
I want to give you the platform to recognize the band that you have. Can you talk about the boys or the girls, or maybe it's all boys, but you tell us, man, you educate us on who's in the band, where they're from, and what they play, and all the good things, right?
That's funny enough. I haven't got a chance to really meet everybody yet. We haven't had our first session to practice, so that's a work in progress.
So this is fresh. This is very fresh. Okay, cool.
The only one that I know personally right now is Kenny Jackson Jr., and I've known him for several years now. He's my lead guitar player, and helps and writes songs too. And I've known his dad. I've known his dad's band, Kenny Jackson Sr. That man, I've never seen somebody like this. He can walk on any stage and pick up any instrument on that stage and be good at it.
Yeah, wow.
And it hurts my feelings because sometimes, because I'm like, I'm just an okay rhythm player, you know, and this guy can over there and play piano,
plays everything, right?
Play steel. I mean, and his son Kenny Jr. He's just as good.
Wow,
just as good. And it just, some people are born with innate talent, and that's okay. And some people have to work a little harder. But I'm super proud of the way everything's going, and I'm proud to have met this man. You know, he's only a couple years older than me.
Yeah, and
we've got along famously, and he's helped me instill the band that I've got going on right now. And I see a very bright future. You know, however quick or slow it takes to get there, but I see some good things.
Yeah, you just let it grow organically. Like you can't force a square peg into a round hole, right? You just got to let things kind of happen by osmosis, if you will, right? And this new band will either jive or they won't jive, and you'll find that out quick. And there's an old saying, you know, win fast, lose fast, right?
Absolutely.
If you get a couple of guys or a guy in the band that just doesn't fit, you lose fast. You get rid of them and you go find the right one, right? At the end of the day, no harm, no foul.
That was my hardest lesson, was letting somebody go. Because
it's not fun.
It's
right?
not fun, and I'm not one to sit there and try to rock the boat or anything like that. And I don't like hurting anybody's feelings, you know, but if somebody complains and makes ripples in the water when you're trying to get everything crystal clear, you gotta shoot them straight and be honest.
Well, you know, it's funny how I'm not a musician for a living. I'm a professional musician. I get paid to play shows, right? So I'm professional in that manner. But I make a living with a consulting firm in sales. And a lot of times the salespeople are not doing what the salespeople should be doing. And if you sit and you think about that at the human level, you say, here's a guy that has 4 kids at home or 2 kids or whatever, and he's trying to pay a mortgage, but he's not getting the job done. The worst thing that you can do is keep him, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not a personal thing, but he has to go somewhere else where he thrives. In the seat he's in, he's not thriving. So you got to put him in the seat in which he thrives. And that requires hard conversations sometimes, right? And here's what happens is it benefits your company for doing it, but it also benefits him because he can go somewhere and flourish, right?
Right.
And grow roots and blossom. And it's right butt, right seat. And it's no different than a band. You know, if the band is a culture, it's a brotherhood. Like you said, you know, I look for military guys, and that's a great mindset if that's the way you want to run it. But they have to fit like a culture before you can make magic in the music. If you have 3 people marching in this direction, but you have one renegade that wants to go in that direction, that's a dead end road for a band, right? It's like a marriage or a girlfriend, boyfriend kind of thing, right? If you don't both share the same interest and the same goals to a certain degree, it's going to go off the rails eventually, right? Oh, yeah. And a band is no different. I'm preaching to the choir. I know you know all of that, but I think you would agree with that, right?
100%. I do agree with that. And, you know, and like I said, there's growing pains. You don't know everything when you first start. And, you know, and that doesn't, just because somebody early on in the band or doesn't agree with your thought process, it doesn't make them a bad person. It just doesn't make them right for you.
That's exactly
and
right.
Just like you were talking about the firm you worked at, you know, it doesn't make that person bad for the company per se. You just might thrive in another position or something like that, you know. I do music professionally, but that's not what pays the bills right now. I work in construction as a project planner and scheduler, you know. It's and I honestly I have a hard time thinking about ever quitting actually working, you know. I can't sit still.
I have my own thoughts around that, John, and I'll tell you, and this is just my opinion, and I'm not a real opinionated person, but I will say I got back out to playing professionally again in, I think it was 2016, where I started playing out solo again. You know, I did the band thing back in the 80s, and then a time period, you know, I raised a family. And so I've been out 9 years now, playing in a duo now. But every show that I play, it reminds me that I'm glad that I have a day job that has a 401k plan, that has health insurance, that has all of the things, because music is great. And people that play it professionally and that's all they do, that's great. That's a great thing if that's what's right for them, right?
Sure.
There's no way that I could survive on what, you know, I mean, because let's just face it. I mean, unless you're out there making it, it's a tough road, man. I mean, it's saturated and you're not making copious amounts of money doing it. Now, I'm not saying you have to have a lot of money to be successful. I'm not saying that at all. But money does help, right?
Yes, my job pays the mortgage, pays everything that I put into music.
Probably bought that guitar over there,
absolutely. Too. Every guitar I've owned has started off as a payment plan.
There you go. Hey, however you can get it.
There are some magical websites that are specifically built for musicians, and they help out tremendously, and that's how I've gotten all my equipment.
Yeah.
But no, I've always said, you know, music does not pay the bills until it does.
Yep, that's right.
And Texas is actually one of the better places to have a music career because a lot of venues here do pay better. Nashville, you can
do pay, right?
Nashville, you'll find somebody over there on the corner to play for $5. You know, that's an extreme exaggeration, but
sure.
There's somebody on every corner there.
And it could still be like this. I can't speak to this because I'm not a Nashville musician, but a lot of the people that play in those clubs out there don't get paid like we get paid here. They play for tips, right? And they play for exposure. They play for those two things, right?
Nothing wrong with that.
No, there's not at all. There's not at all. But think about it. If you go into a place here, right, and music is a full-time job, and there's 8 people in the place, and you make $12 in tips that night.
Gee,
tell me what mortgage you're going to afford, right?
You're not.
Exactly. It's tough, right? Is my point. So I think the way you're doing it is probably the ideal way. It's not going to pay until it pays, and that's a great mentality to have.
Well, I've even thought about, you know, even if it does happen, even if someday I see my name in bright lights, you know, which would be wonderful. You know, I'm not banking on it, but it'd be a great thing to happen. I'm probably still going to try and work. I'm going to set up a plan B, set up a firm, something, tell people how to do this and that, I can't remember what it's called. But you know, that's what I would like to do, is set up something like that on the side. 'Cause there's a lot of superstars out there, NFL players, basketball players, and things like that end their career, retire, and have nothing to show for it because they spent all their money during their career time. That there's a lot of smart folks like, you know, Shaquille O'Neal, who has built an empire.
First one that came to my mind when you said that.
Oh,
it's like goodness. Has so many interests outside of basketball, right?
Well, I mean, Taylor Swift is a good one.
Sure.
I mean, I might not see eye to eye on everything. Her music, specifically, she's not a bad writer. She's got a wonderful talent. She's amazing. You know, but outside of that, she is a force to be reckoned with as an entrepreneur, and young women should look up to her. Yeah. You know, as somebody to aspire to be like, as far as building their own platform to stand on.
I agree with that 100%. And I'll say that I'm not a Swiftie, right? I don't buy Taylor Swift records. I don't badmouth Taylor Swift, but she's done something right, because more people know her than know me, right? And she has a little bit more money than I have too. So, so more power to Taylor and anybody that, and even yourself, that, you know, you're beginning the career, and hopefully it blossoms into something where, you know, you don't have to work another day in your life. I mean, there are those artists that don't have to, right? So yeah, that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. Well, I wanted to, maybe just change gears on you a little bit. You were in the military, the Army, right? That's the branch that you were in. So first of all, I mean, thank you for your service and the dedication to the country for sure.
Thank you.
How did you find your way into the military? Do you come from a military family, or did you play Army when you were a kid and just wanted to be a soldier when you grew up? Talk to the listeners about that.
I mean, I have some of my family members that were in the service, but honestly, they did not set that aspiration or anything. And honestly, aspiration isn't even the right word for it. I went and worked I left high school at 16, went to Job Corps in San Marcos, got a GED and a trade. You know, a lot of young men go off and get trades, and if you don't go to college, a trade's a good thing to have, you know. But got a machining trade, CNC machining programming, and it just wasn't cutting it at 18 years old. Didn't have the experience. So I went and worked for the prison, which a lot of folks around here do that, oil field or prison. And about 6 to 8 months into that, I'm just like, you know what, this ain't for me. And I just randomly stopped by a recruiting office and got talked into whatever happened, and signed up, and I went straight into the Army during the height of the Afghanistan war, and front lines, no doubt. I was infantry. Went in January of 2009, and June I was deployed.
Wow. So you went straight to Afghanistan from once you enlisted, right?
I stopped by basic training in April, went to my unit for about a month after that, and was deployed, you know, right after.
Where was basic training for you in the Army?
Basic training was in Fort Benning, Georgia, Sand Hill.
Okay. How was boot camp? Is it tough? Like, talk to the civilians out there, right, for just a minute.
Basic training then was different than it is now. It's the military has gotten softer, and not to say that the military isn't still the military. It's just our younger generation coming in has gotten is softer than, you know, 80s, 90s kids growing up, and even, you know, generations before that. And we were raised by harder generations, and they were raised by even harder ones. You know, it's just it's different. So they have to go into it differently, and baby step around people now. And for me, basic training was what we called high speed, high stress. So you learn all you can, but you're getting drugged through the mud every single day, and you're getting mass punishment for Joe Smo over there screwing up. So he screwed up, so everybody else is getting in trouble, which is not a bad thing. If you're going into something as unique as the military itself, you have to rely on a team. Yeah. You have to rely on each other as a brotherhood, sisterhood. You know, you depend on each other. And if that individual is screwing up because he doesn't know his job, then it is your job as his team member to square him away.
Well, what do they say, John? You're only as strong as the weakest link.
Agreed.
Yeah. And you being a military man, you would agree with that.
I
right?
do.
Because people die when you have a weak link, right? Or can die.
Hesitation can be that middle ground between life and death.
Yeah. 100%. When you look in the rearview mirror, are you glad you went through it and experienced that, or do you have regrets of serving?
I have no regrets. It made me the man I am today.
Sure.
I mean, I did not walk away unscathed. I have my fair share of hard times and trying to adjust, and still to this day. I mean, you know, I came back. I got out in 2012, and it's 2026, and I still, to this day, have a hard time sleeping.
Wow.
You know, I wake up at night and in a cold sweat sometimes, and you know, it's adjusting from, especially in a combat-related role. It's tough, and some people it's easy, some people it's not. Some people cope in various ways. They drink too heavily, they go off and do drugs. Myself, when I first came back from Afghanistan, I got into drinking heavily, but I broke that habit when I got out about a year or so, I kind of got woke up when I got in trouble, with the law, and, drinking and driving is not a good thing for anybody to do. And life lessons, lessons learned the hard way. And that's a lot of country songs too. But it's an experience I would never trade for anything.
Yeah. Well, my apologies for bringing anything to the surface that you didn't want to.
Oh, no.
You didn't want to come out with, but I think there's I've always had the utmost respect for the military, for law enforcement, and I think it's a badge of honor. I never served. I have a brother that was a sergeant for the Harris County Sheriff's Office, and couldn't be more proud of him. And for the men and women that serve the country, like I have nothing but respect for you guys. And that's why I want my listeners to hear that, and I want them to know about the military and things like that. Right? It's not just a music thing; it's an everything thing, right?
Well, I didn't say anything that I didn't want to be forthcoming with, and honestly, to me, any young man or woman who aspires to go into the service needs to hear these things. I mean, it needs to understand that it is not all flowers and rainbows. You don't just go in there getting a paycheck. You're not going to walk away without your fair share of heartache.
Sure.
And but it teaches you structure. It teaches you how to grow up.
Yeah.
How to be an adult.
Sure.
And there's a lot of young men and women that need that structure. And I'm not saying, hey, go off and sign your life away right now, because John Gentry says the military is a good thing. That's only my opinion, But if you need that kind of value in your life, then at least go look at it.
Yeah. Would you say that the things that you learned in the military you still use on a daily basis today?
Every single day.
Yeah. The structure of it, right? I mean, just being structured, like waking up, and simple things, probably like making your bed. Now, some people get out of the military and don't make their bed still, but some people carry those traits through life. Would you agree with that?
100%. I think the biggest one that carried with me was time management.
Yeah.
Time management. And I hate being late. I absolutely hate being late. And generally I would have been earlier getting here today, but, things do happen. But generally speaking, if I'm not somewhere 30 minutes to an hour before time, I am late. I am upset. And if somebody else caused that, they're going to get an earful.
Yeah. Well, I could give you a hug for saying that, because probably my biggest pet peeve on the planet Earth is people that are tardy. Like, I don't waste people's time. I don't want people to waste my time. And I could tell that there was something special about you when you picked up the phone and called me an hour before this interview and said, hey man, traffic's crazy. I'm probably going to be there right at 1:00, because that showed me that you respect my time and that you care about being on time.
Absolutely.
And you don't think that it's telling a story, but it really told a story when you did that, right? Most people would just show up 30 minutes late and not, whatever. But that drives me crazy. And I know in the military, you didn't just get to whatever when you wanted to. Like, you got there when you were supposed to be there, right?
Right place, right time, right uniform, golden rule.
That is exactly it. Well, what was your MOS in the Army?
I was what they call 11 Bravo infantry. I was a rifleman, and front line. So I was on the ground, door kicking, doing all the hard stuff. People see movies about it, and ladies and gentlemen, don't believe everything you see, because there's a lot of Hollywood stuff going on there, but it is much. It's difficult. It's my job was not the easiest choice that I picked voluntarily. If I had any kind of advice for anybody, any young man and woman now going in, I would tell them to go into more of a technical field, something that's going to give them a career outside.
Yeah.
Because it was not easy for me to find my line of work when I got out.
I was going to ask you that, and it's funny that you even brought it up, but I was going to ask you, did the MOS find you, or did you find the MOS? And it sounds like you found that's what you want. I mean, you signed up for it. You signed on the dotted line, right?
Absolutely.
But does is that generally how it works with the military? You go in and say, I want to be a radar guy, or I want to be a tech guy, or do they say, hey, John, guess what, buddy? You're front line, man.
I have my opinions. So generally speaking, and if there's any recruiters out there, I really don't care. A lot of recruiters out there, they have to recruit, and I understand they have to bring young men and women in. Got you, but be honest about what you're putting them through. Be honest. Say, hey, you might not like this.
Sure.
You might be more qualified and fit for this. If they have the option, give them the option. And it's not always recruiters' fault. Some of these kids, they pick up and say, hey, I want to do this. I want to do that. I had options.
Yep.
I had options. I could have been a machinist or mechanic in the service. I could have done all that. I was 18 years old, and I wanted to fight for my country the way I saw was correct at the time.
Sure.
In the most honorable fashion.
Yeah.
And then, by God, I did.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of it.
Well, that's great, and I'm proud that you served, and for standing up for liberty and protecting the country. Again, I didn't want to go into a rabbit hole about the military, but I love those outside conversations like that, right? I mean, it's for civilian people, we don't know what it's like to be in the military. Of course, we see Fox News and CNN and stuff like that about the military, but we don't know, right? We see what the media tells us that we need to see at the end of the day.
I'd rather somebody be well informed than ignorant.
100%. And you know what? There's never been anything but truth talked about on my podcast. I think there's probably some journalist or some media people that look for dirt, that look for stories. I'm not that guy. Like, let's keep it to the facts. Let's talk about the subject. If the subject, or if the facts hurt, then the facts hurt at the end of the day. But we're not going around fabricating stories and talking about people. That's not this kind of show, right? And I never wanted it to be like that. Absolutely. So thanks for sharing that about the military, man. I really do appreciate that. But if we jump back on the music bandwagon, what's new? Is there something new and exciting for John Gentry in 2026 that the listeners of Backstage Pass can look forward to, from whether it's a show perspective or new music perspective? And maybe there's stuff that you can't talk about, but anything that you can share around, new content, whatever. Like, talk to us about that. Right?
Yeah. I'm not the best at social media. I'm actually terrible at it. I hate social media, to be honest with you. That's Facebook and Instagram, all that stuff wasn't really a thing, and we can go back to, word of mouth. It'd be much easier and simpler. But it does have its bright side. It does help get things out there a lot easier than snail mail and emails.
Sure.
I do have a song that's going to be coming out soon called "She's a Cowgirl," and it's about how a father should raise a young woman to be tough and strong and true, and I think it's going to resonate with a lot of young independent women out there. And, I can't wait to see what kind of form it takes over time.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to that. Certainly let me know when that drops, and I'll try to get the word out on my socials. I think that social media is a necessary evil. Unfortunately, I curse it and praise it every day of my life. It's something that if you're in the public eye, like you and I are, from, whether it's a musician or a podcaster, if you're not public, nobody knows what you're doing, right? And so that's what I mean by necessary evil. We don't like to do it. I don't like to do it, but we have to stay relevant. So Where can the listeners find you, speaking of social media, on the social media platforms? Is there one that you hang out on more than the others?
Facebook and TikTok are the ones I hang out on more. Instagram is attached to my Facebook, so whatever I post on Facebook will slide over there.
Yeah.
But generally, those two platforms are what I hang out on. You can find me under John Gentry on Facebook, and then john.gentry.cm CM on TikTok.
Okay. Well, excellent. Well, John, listen, man, thanks so much for coming all the way here. I know that was a little bit of a haul from Willis, but this was fun. It's great to get to know you, hear the stories about, your music and the military, and, keep in touch with new things that are coming up, if you will. Sometimes we'll bring guests back on to talk about new projects, so stay in touch with me there.
I absolutely will. It's been my pleasure being here.
Yeah, so you guys make sure to follow John on all of his social media platforms. I also ask the listeners to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast on Facebook at Backstage Pass Radio Podcast, on Instagram at Backstage Pass Radio, and on the website at BackstagePassRadio.com. You guys remember to take care of yourselves and each other, and we will see you right back here on the next episode of Backstage Pass Radio.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Backstage Pass Radio.
Backstage Pass Radio.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and gained some new insights into the world of music. Backstage Pass Radio is heard in over 80 countries, and the streams continue to grow each week. If you loved what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave reviews on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us bring you even more amazing content. So join us next time for another deep dive into the stories and sounds that shape our musical landscape. Until then, keep listening, keep exploring, and keep the passion of music alive.